Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
I want you to close your eyes for a second. Just picture,
Oh, this is going to be intense, isn't it?
yeah, just trust me.
Yeah.
Imagine you are in a cabin, and it's not some cozy hot cocoa vacation rental. It is a rugged, completely isolated shelter high up in the mountains.
Right.
It's the dead of winter.
Yeah.
The wind is just howling outside, the snow is piling up against the door, and you are totally cut off from the rest of the world.
No phone.
No phone, no internet, absolutely no way out. And to make matters worse, you are burning up with a fever that is, well, it's probably going to kill you.
That is such a terrifying place to start a story. I mean, it's pure primal fear, isolation, and imminent death.
Right, and this is the exact situation facing a historian named Jonathan in the source material we are covering today. He's gone into the wild to write, to just be alone with his thoughts, but his body has completely failed him.
Yeah.
He's lying there, delirium is setting in, he's listening to the storm, and then suddenly the door just bursts open.
And usually, in a horror movie, this is when the axe murderer walks in.
Exactly. But it's not a murderer. Out of this raging blizzard steps a stranger. A young man, incredibly beautiful, with this mass of black curly hair, wearing a heavy coat that seems way too nice for the weather.
Yeah, an opulent coat.
Right. And he doesn't attack Jonathan. He immediately goes to work. He boils water. He makes broth. He literally nurses this dying historian back to life.
Which is really our first clue that this isn't your standard ghost story. This entity, who we come to know as Azriel, displays this immediate, almost desperate need to care for someone, to connect with a human being.
But then he drops the bomb. Because once the fever breaks and they are sitting by the fire, this stranger reveals he isn't some hiker who got lost in the storm.
No, not at all.
He isn't even human. Or rather, he hasn't been human for a very, very long time. He calls himself a ghost, a genie, the servant of the bones.
The servant of the bones.
Yeah. And he says he's been walking the earth for 2,500 years.
And this is the entire premise of the document we are analyzing today. It's presented as a witness testimony. Azriel asks Jonathan to be his scribe. He basically says, write this down. I need my story told.
Right.
And what follows isn't just a spooky campfire tale about a haunted skeleton. It is a sprawling, violent, just heartbreaking chronicle of ancient Babylon at the exact moment it fell to the Persian Empire.
We are going to unpack all of it today. We're talking about the geopolitics of the 6th century BCE, the nature of religious hysteria, and a massive conspiracy that literally shaped the course of biblical history.
It really did.
But at the center of all of it is this one guy, Azriel, a golden boy who gets completely chewed up and spit out by the machinery of empire.
It's a tragedy of utility. That's really the theme I want you to track today as we go through this. What happens when a human being is viewed solely as a tool, a weapon, a symbol?
Yeah.
Azriel is the ultimate case study in objectification.
So let's jump into the time machine. We are leaving the snowy cabin and going straight to the heat of Babylon. This is the time of the exile.
Right, post-Nebuchadnezzar.
Exactly. Nebuchadnezzar has already conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the first temple, and dragged the Jewish population to Babylon. Now, growing up, I went to Sunday school, and the picture I got of the exile was, well, it was grim.
Very grim.
I imagined people in rags, chained together, weeping by the river, making bricks under a whip all day long.
Yeah. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. That is the famous psalm. It's the deep cultural memory of the event. But historians, and Azriel's testimony here, they paint a very different picture, particularly for the upper classes.
Right, because Azriel isn't making bricks.
Far from it. Azriel's family is loaded. They are the 1%. He describes a life of immense luxury. They live in a compound with courtyards, fountains, silk pillows, countless servants.
It sounds amazing, honestly.
His father is a high-ranking scribe and courtier. They deal in pearls, incense, gold. They are deeply embedded in the Babylonian economy and power structure.
This totally blew my mind. He basically describes them as successfully assimilated immigrants who are practically running the place.
That's a great way to put it. The exile wasn't a giant prison camp for everyone. It was a relocation of the intelligentsia. The Babylonians wanted the Hebrew scholars, the merchants, the artisans to help build and manage their empire.
Makes sense.
And Azriel is the perfect product of the system. He's fluent in Aramaic, Hebrew, Akkadian, Sumerian. He's a brilliant scholar. He's beautiful. He's rich. He is the golden boy of Babylon.
And he makes his comparison early on that I found so striking. He compares ancient Babylon to modern America.
Oh.
And he's not doing it in a judgmental Babylon is the city of sin kind of way. He's talking about the vibe.
Yes, it's one of the sharpest insights in the text.
Mm.
He describes Babylon as a place of relentless hustle, a place of pure commerce. He says the people were obsessed with business, with contracts, with getting ahead.
Yeah.
But, and here's the kicker, he says they were also utterly terrified of luck.
Right. He says something like, Americans rattle on about negative thinking and bad self-image, and he compares that directly to the Babylonian fear of demons.
It's the exact same psychological mechanism. In modern America, if you aren't optimistic, if you don't manifest your success, you're deemed a failure. You brought it on yourself.
Oh, wow.
In Babylon, if you didn't pay the right respects to the personal gods, if you didn't wear the right amulet, you attracted bad luck. It's this deep anxiety that underlies a wealthy, striving society. If you stop moving, the demons, or the market forces, will eat you.
So Azriel is living in this New York City of the ancient world. But he has a secret, and it's a weird one.
Very weird.
He's a Hebrew, so he's supposed to be a strict monotheist. One God, Yahweh, no idols whatsoever. But he's growing up literally in the shadow of the Azriel, which is the great temple of Marduk.
Chief god of Babylon.
Right, and he starts talking to Marduk.
This is where we have to really understand the Babylonian religious mindset. It wasn't just about the big, distant gods up in the sky. It was highly intimate.
How so?
You had a personal god. You talked to them almost like a therapist or a business partner. You'd haggle with them. You'd say, hey, I sacrificed a goat for you yesterday. Why did my shipment of wool get delayed on the river?
That is so transactional. I love it.
It was. And Azriel essentially adopts Marduk as his personal god. It starts innocently enough with a little golden statue in his room. He talks to it. He vents all his teenage angst to it.
As teenagers do.
Exactly. But then the statue talks back.
And this is key for us to establish. Within the context of the testimony, this isn't a hallucination, right? This isn't schizophrenia. This is real.
Yes. The entity that is Marduk, or at least a powerful spirit wearing the mask of Marduk, starts communicating with him directly.
It sounds almost like a buddy comedy at first. Marduk appears to him not as a giant scary monster, but as a guy. A solid-looking man with golden skin and golden hair, just casually walking next to him in the street.
Yeah, blending in.
And Marduk is funny. He cracks jokes, he complains about the other gods, he teases Azriel about Yahweh living in a tent.
It's incredibly seductive. Think about it. Imagine you're a young man, brilliant, but torn between two vastly different cultures. On one side, you have the severe, invisible, highly demanding god of your ancestors, who, frankly, seems to only offer guilt and exile.
A lot of heavy rules.
Right. On the other side, you have this golden, laughing, tangible deity who walks down the street with you and literally helps you with your homework. Which one are you going to like more?
Yeah, it's not a hard choice for a kid. But this isn't just a private imaginary friend situation. Other people start to notice. There's the legend of the smile.
Oh, the smile. Yes. As a child, Azriel is in the great temple staring up at the massive, stories-high processional statue of Marduk, and the statue smiles at him.
Just him.
Just him. The priests see it happen, the people in the crowd see it. It creates this huge rumor that this boy, this Hebrew boy, is explicitly favored by the god of the city.
Which has to be dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. It puts a massive target on his back from both sides of his world. The Hebrews think he's being seduced by demons. The Babylonians are wondering if he's some new prophet.
And Azriel, being young and a bit naive, makes a critical mistake here. He tells his father.
He does.
No, his father is portrayed as this very gentle, loving man. Azriel actually calls him my little brother because the father is so emotional and soft-hearted, while Azriel is this sharp, capable, practical one.
Right.
You'd think the father would understand or at least try to protect him.
But he doesn't, and this is a really heartbreaking moment in the deep dive. The father is terrified. He thinks his son is possessed. He thinks this endangers the entire family's standing in the community, their wealth, their safety.
Yeah, everything they've built.
So out of fear and out of a misguided desire to cure the boy, he goes to the elders. He goes to the strict religious authorities.
And that leads directly to the confrontation in the public garden. This scene is cinematic gold. You have Azriel walking with Marduk, who is visible to anyone with a sight, the spiritual sight, and they run into Enoch.
Enoch is your classic Old Testament prophet archetype. Half naked, covered in ash, wild eyes, just screaming at the top of his lungs about doom and sin. He represents the unyielding, furious orthodoxy of the exile.
Yeah.
He sees Marduk, and he does not back down.
He calls the god of Babylon a fraud right to his face, in public. He calls him a piece of metal.
And Marduk reacts with sheer divine rage. He explodes. The text describes it as a shower of gold dust, a blinding light, and a sudden, violent sandstorm that whips through the garden just to scatter the mob.
It's an insane display of raw power. But it's also a total disaster for Azriel. The secret is out. He's not just a weird kid with a rumor anymore. He's the center of a supernatural storm.
And this brings us right into the geopolitical thriller part of the story. Because while Azriel is dealing with his personal god problems and his family drama, the entire city of Babylon is dealing with an apocalypse.
The Persians are coming.
Cyrus the Persian, Cyrus the Great. He has swept across the known world. He conquered the Medes, the Lydians. He's undefeated. And now, his massive army is camped right outside the impregnable walls of Babylon.
And Babylon's leadership is, well, lacking is putting it nice.
Ooh, that's putting it very mildly. The king, Nabonidus, is absent. Literally absent. He's been gone for 10 years, living out in the desert, completely obsessed with archaeology and worshiping the moon god Sin.
Not Marduk.
Exactly. He has totally neglected Marduk and the city's infrastructure. The people hate him for it.
And he left his son, Belshazzar, in charge. And we know Belshazzar from the Bible, the whole writing on the wall story.
Right. A drunkard, totally incompetent. So you have a massive power vacuum at the worst possible time. The real power in the city lies with the priesthood of Marduk. They are the deep state.
The ones pulling the strings.
And they are looking at the situation. A mad king, a drunk regent, and the greatest army in the world sitting outside the gates, and they decide to make a move.
They decide to sell out their own city to save themselves.
It's pure realpolitik. If Cyrus has to siege the city, everyone dies, the temples burn, the priests lose their heads. But if they can open the gates peacefully, if they can welcome Cyrus as a liberator instead of a conqueror, they can keep their jobs. They can keep their wealth and power.
But they need a narrative. They can't just open the gates and tell the people, hey, we surrender. They need the god to sanction it.
Exactly. Legitimacy in the ancient world comes entirely from the divine. They need Marduk to physically welcome Cyrus. They need a grand procession where the god takes the hand of the conqueror and leads him into the temple.
It's a giant photo op.
It is the ultimate photo op.
But there's a snag. The statue, the giant processional idol they usually carry around for these things, is falling apart.
It's completely rotten. It's made of wood and coated in gold, but it's ancient. It's literally filled with old bones from previous sacrifices. If they try to move it for this massive event, it might crumble.
And if the god crumbles in front of the crowd,
the psychological game is lost instantly. Panic ensues. Riots. Cyrus attacks.
So they need a new statue. But not just a carved piece of wood. A living statue. They need Azriel.
And here is where all the narrative threads violently collide. The priests know about Azriel. They know he's incredibly beautiful. They know he has the so-called favor of the god. They decide he will actually be Marduk for the procession.
The scene where they seal this deal is incredible. It's this tense secret meeting in the palace. You have Cyrus the Persian, who Azriel describes as looking like a golden lion, just radiating this immense power.
Yes.
You have the senile king Nabonidus, who's barely there, the drunk Belshazzar, the calculating priests, and the Hebrew elders.
And notice the transaction happening here. This is the pivot point of history. Cyrus turns to the Hebrews and basically says, help me take this city without a fight. Deliver the city to me from within. And in return, I will let you go home. I will let you return to Zion and rebuild your temple in Jerusalem.
He bribes them with Zion.
He does. And it works perfectly. The prophet Enoch, the same guy who yelled at Marduk, even calls Cyrus the Anointed One, the Messiah. It's a geopolitical masterstroke. But to sell it to the Babylonian populace, the priests still need their show. They need the living God.
So the dark deal is struck. Azriel dies so the Hebrews can go home and the priests can stay rich.
That is the trade. One life for a nation and an empire.
And Azriel's father, he agrees to it. This part just kills me. He knows this ritual will kill his son.
He weeps bitterly over it. He is broken by it. But he is a man of his time and his deep faith. He truly believes that the return to Jerusalem is more important than any one life, even his own beloved sons.
It's the story of Abraham and Isaac all over again.
Exactly. But this time, no angel comes out of the sky to stop the knife.
And Azriel,
No.
does he fight back? He has power, he could run?
No, he doesn't. And this is probably the most defining moment of his entire character. He looks at his father, who is weeping and terrified, and he decides to spare him the guilt. He hugs him. He calls him my little brother again. He agrees to do it, not for Cyrus, not for the priests, but to save his people and to comfort his father. He walks into the slaughterhouse completely willingly.
Let's talk about that slaughterhouse.
What?
Because when I first read he becomes the statue, I thought, okay, cool costume, maybe some heavy body paint.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it is horrific.
It is absolute torture. It is a slow, methodical execution disguised as glorification.
They hand him over to Asenath, the Hebrew witch, and Remath, this young, incredibly ambitious Babylonian priest.
Yeah, and they begin the preparation.
They strip him naked, they painstakingly shave every single hair from his body,
Yeah.
and then they bring out the mixture.
The gold.
It's a boiling cauldron of molten gold mixed with lead, wax, and various poisons. It has to be hot enough to remain liquid, but not so hot that it burns the skin off immediately.
And they paint him with it?
Everywhere. They paint the liquid gold into his nostrils so he can barely breathe. They paint his ears. They paint his eyelids. And this is the detail that honestly made me shiver. They paint his eyes open.
Ugh, I can't even imagine. They literally glue the lashes back so he cannot blink. He has to stare, unblinking, like a real statue, for days.
I just shuddered thinking about it. How does he not die immediately from shock or suffocation?
The golden mixture contains incredibly powerful numbing agents and drugs. As the gold hardens, it cuts off all sensation. His skin goes cold and numb. He can feel the immense weight of it, the suffocation of his pores, but the pain is distant. It's suppressed by the dregs.
So he's trapped.
He becomes a prisoner inside his own skin. He can't move. He can barely breathe. He is just a beautiful golden object now.
And then the temple doors open. The procession begins.
Imagine the sheer sensory overload of that moment. He is standing rigidly on a massive wooden wagon, unable to move a muscle. The desert sun is beating down on the gold, heating it up against his skin. The noise of the crowd is deafening, hundreds of thousands of people screaming, banging drums, blowing horns.
And he is holding the hand of Cyrus the Conqueror.
He's the prop.
He is the prop. And he sees his own people, the Hebrews, cheering in the crowd. He hears his own father singing a psalm. I will make a man more precious than fine gold.
It's so ironic, bitter, and devastating. Azriel realizes the profound, crushing loneliness of being the scapegoat. He is dying for a lie that makes absolutely everyone else happy.
But it's not just standing there on a wagon.
Yeah.
He has to perform the trials of the god. This is where it goes from political theater to a full-on nightmare circus. They take it to the house of the ordeal.
Right. The ancient myth says that Marduk has to battle chaos to renew the world. So the priests stage the battle for the crowd. They drug Azriel heavily. He's drinking wine mixed with blood and honey. And then they release the lions.
Actual living lions.
Starved lions. And Azriel, this teenage boy encased in heavy golden poison, has to fight them. They've coated his lips with blood and honey to attract the beasts. The lions smell the blood. They see the flashing gold and they pounce.
It's so visceral in the text. The description of him mechanically driving the sword into the lion, because that's literally all he can do. He's running purely on adrenaline and whatever magic Marduk is giving him.
It's the ultimate dissociation. He watches himself kill. He feels the impact of the lion's body, but it's like it's happening to someone else. And the crowd absolutely loves it. They think it's a genuine miracle. Look, the god kills the beasts, but it's just a terrified, heavily drugged boy fighting for his life.
And then the bees. I have a major phobia of bees, so this part was rough for me. The silken dragon.
This is a piece of theatrical horror engineered by the priests. It's a massive dragon puppet made of silk, but it's literally stuffed with live swarming bees, and they wrap Azriel in it.
Oh God. No, thank you.
The dragon swallows the god. He is trapped inside the sack of stinging insects. They're crawling all over his golden body, stinging the metal, trying to sting his eyes if he isn't careful. He has to blindly cut his way out with a sword.
And miraculously, he does. He survives the lions, he survives the bees. The 3 days of the festival finally end. Cyrus is officially crowned king of Babylon. The decree is signed for the Jews to return to Jerusalem. Everyone has what they want.
And Azriel is actively dying. The poison from the gold and lead has seeped deep into his blood. His organs are failing. He fully expects to be carried into a quiet room, cleaned off, and allowed to just drift into the dark.
Right, that was the promise. A gentle death for a hero.
That was the deal.
But there's always a twist. Asenath the witch and Remath the priest, they aren't done with him.
No, they aren't. They represent the dark, occult underbelly of the priesthood. They don't just want a political victory, they want ultimate occult power. Asenath possesses a tablet, an ancient text, possibly from Uruk or Sumer, that predates Babylon by a millennia.
It's a spell.
It's a spell to create a servant of the bones.
They don't want a dead martyr, they want a ghost slave.
Exactly, a genie, a supernatural weapon they can control forever.
So they take Azriel, who can barely even stand at this point, into a secret, dark, underground chamber beneath the temple. And there's a cauldron. But this isn't for paint. This is boiling gold.
Bubbling molten gold, and they begin to read the curse from the tablet. The curse is horribly specific. It binds the spirit and the flesh directly into the bones. It dictates that the spirit will never be free, that it will be eternally tied to the skeleton, forced to obey whoever holds the bones, the master.
Azriel knows exactly what's happening. He tries to fight.
He's far too weak. The drugs, the sheer exhaustion, they pick him up, this heavy golden statue of a boy, and they throw him alive into the boiling cauldron.
This description, the separation of spirit and body, it's not just a physical death.
No, it's a profound metaphysical tearing. He describes the absolute agony of the heat, the gold choking him, literally burning the flesh straight off his bones. And then pop, he is out. He is floating up near the ceiling of the chamber, looking down.
He's a ghost.
He is a pure spirit. He looks down into the pot and he sees the ultimate horror. He sees his own meat dissolving. He sees the gristle melting away until there is absolutely nothing left but clean, white bones, heavily coated in gold, sitting at the bottom of the pot.
And the spell, it works.
It works perfectly. He feels the pull. He is tethered to those bones. He is now the servant.
But Remath, the arrogant young priest, makes a fatal error here. He thinks he has created a robot. He commands Azriel, enter the bones, obey me.
And Azriel realizes something terrifying. He isn't just a normal ghost. He is a god. All that worship from the festival, all those hundreds of thousands of people cheering for him for 3 days, all that belief poured directly into him. It empowered him. He essentially has the power of Marduk now.
So he doesn't obey.
He looks at Asenath. She's already dead on the floor. The toxic fumes and the sheer psychic shock of the dark ritual killed her instantly. Then he looks at Remath.
And he chooses violence.
He manifests. He gathers the particles of the air, carbon, dust, moisture, and forms a dense, solid body. He looks exactly like the golden statue again. And he casually walks over to Remath and snaps his neck.
It's brutal and instant. The master is dead.
And there's this incredibly tragic moment right after the murder. Marduk is there. The actual god, Marduk. He's been watching the whole time from the shadows.
And he didn't help.
He couldn't. This is a fascinating bit of theology the book throws at us. Marduk tells Azriel, I am a god of the people. I am powered by their belief. I am like a cloud sustained by their breath.
Okay.
But this magic, this necromancy, it is from the deep earth. It is older than me. It is harder than me. I simply could not stop it.
So the god is powerless against the dark magic of the earth. That's chilling.
It leaves Azriel completely, utterly alone. His father has abandoned him. His god is helpless. His tormentors are dead at his feet. And he is a brand new ghost staring at his own bones in a pot.
So what does he do? He gathers them up, which is such a macabre image to me. He reaches in, scoops his own golden bones out of the cooling cauldron, and puts them in a sack.
He needs answers. He knows he's something wrong now, something unnatural. So he goes to the only person left in the city who has real power. He goes to Cyrus.
Imagine waking up as the king of the world, Cyrus the Great, in your royal bedchamber, and the golden boy you just sacrificed yesterday walks right in through the wall, holding a sack of his own bones.
Cyrus is terrified, naturally. But Azriel isn't there for revenge. He's there for help. He says, I helped you win the world, now help me. He wants to know what he's become.
And Cyrus, to his credit, tries to help. He tells him about a magician in Miletus, a Greek city far away, the greatest magician in the world. He says go to him. Maybe he knows how to fix this.
So they pack the bones. Azriel asks Cyrus for a cedar casket, and he asks for rose petals.
That detail really got me. Why rose petals?
It's a touch of humanity. In the midst of all this extreme gore and gold and betrayal, he wants something that smells sweet, something natural. It's Azriel desperately clinging to the beauty of the mortal world, even as he leaves it.
And then he dissolves. He goes into the bones.
He describes it as a velvet blackness, a deep, dreamless sleep. He genuinely thinks he's just going for a quick nap until the caravan gets to Miletus. But the true tragedy of the servant of the bones is memory. When he goes into the bones, he forgets. He loses himself entirely.
So he sleeps. And he doesn't wake up in Miletus. He wakes up centuries later when some new master opens the box and calls his true name. And by then, he doesn't remember Azriel. He doesn't remember Babylon. He is just the servant.
He becomes exactly what Remath wanted him to be, a weapon. Passed from hand to hand, from master to master for 2,000 years. Used to kill, used to steal, used to spy. A genie in a bottle, but the bottle is his own skull.
Until now. Until he wakes up in this freezing cabin with Jonathan.
And this brings us right back to the frame story. because Azriel has suddenly, inexplicably remembered everything. The fever of the historian, the biting cold of the snow. It triggered this massive avalanche of memory.
But why now? It's not just a random Tuesday. We find out there is a very specific reason he's awake in the modern era.
Right. There's a break in the storytelling. Jonathan wakes up from a nap and Azriel is gone. Jonathan turns on a little portable TV he has with him.
And it's the 90s news, so it's grim. But specifically, there's a massive report about a cult, the Temple of the Mind.
Run by a man named Greg Belkin, a highly charismatic messianic leader, the news is reporting the shocking murder of his own stepdaughter, Esther Belkin.
And Jonathan sees something on the screen. There's surveillance footage of the crowd near the murder scene. And there, just standing in the background, is Azriel.
This is the massive aha moment of the narrative. We realize Azriel isn't just wandering around the snowy mountains telling his memoirs, he is actively hunting.
It turns out Gregory Belkin is a descendant. He's Hebrew, from the exact same ancient lineage as Azriel's people. He has the sight, and he's trying to build a global empire, using faith and technology, just like the priests of Babylon did.
The parallels are stark and intentional. Belkin is a terrifying mix of the mad King Nabonidus and the wily priest Remath. He uses faith to perfectly control people. And he sacrificed his own daughter, Esther, just like Azra's father sacrificed him.
The cycle of history just repeats itself. Fathers sacrificing children for political power.
But this time, the scapegoat fights back. Azriel returns to the cabin from the snow and confirms it to Jonathan. He says, "I killed him. He killed Gregory Belkin. He stopped the cult."
He broke the loop.
He really did. For the first time in 2,500 years, he didn't obey a master. He acted entirely on his own moral compass. He saw an innocent girl die. He saw the cycle repeating, and he intervened. He's finally trying to be Azriel again, not the servant.
He shows Jonathan what he can do, too. It's not just talk. There's that wild scene where he shapeshifts right in the cabin.
He turns into the exact image of Gregory Belkin right in front of Jonathan. And he explains it not with magic words or hocus pocus, but with physics. He talks about atoms, about holding the particles of light and matter together with his sheer will. It's a very sci-fi take on a ghost.
And then, the bearskin rug. This was honestly my favorite moment in the entire frame story. Jonathan is still shivering. He's still incredibly weak from the fever. And Azriel he looks at the empty air, focuses, and poof, a thick, heavy, incredibly warm bearskin rug appears.
It's a manipulation of matter, sure, but look at the intent behind it. He has godlike power. He could have summoned a pile of gold. He could have summoned a weapon. He summoned a blanket for a sick man.
It's comfort.
It's pure care. After all the torture in Babylon, after centuries of being used as a literal murder weapon by greedy masters, Azriel's core nature is still that of the kind boy who brought hot broth to a stranger in a blizzard.
Yeah.
He wants to nurture. He wants to protect.
They end up sleeping side by side on that rug. The ancient, immensely powerful spirit and the frail, dying historian. And Azriel admits that he's scared.
He's terrified of the howling souls. He tells Jonathan the air is thick with the dead, the restless dead.
Yeah.
They are confused, muttering, mindless spirits. They constantly cling to the living. Because Azriel is so powerful, he shines like a beacon to them in the spiritual realm, so they constantly crowd around him. He needs Jonathan's bodily warmth, his steady heartbeat, just to anchor himself against the void so he doesn't lose his mind.
It's incredibly lonely. It grounds all this high historical fantasy in a very raw human emotion. He's immortal, he's practically a god, and he just wants a friend so he doesn't have to hear the ghosts scream in the dark.
It's the ultimate curse of the survivor. He survived Babylon, he survived the boiling cauldron, he survived all of human history, but survival is incredibly lonely.
So we've traveled from the hanging gardens of the ancient world to the snowy mountains of the modern day. We've seen a boy become a god, a golden statue, a ghost, and basically a superhero stopping a cult.
It's a hell of a journey. And it forces you to look at history completely differently. We usually read about Cyrus the Great, about the glorious fall of empires and the shifting of borders. We look at the maps and textbooks. We don't usually think about the grease and the gears.
The people who get ground up to make those empires function.
Exactly. The scapegoats. Every great historical shift, every so-called miracle of politics usually has a victim buried deep at the foundation. Azriel is the voice of those victims. He's saying, I was there, I felt the pain, I paid the ultimate price for your temple and your empire.
And it makes you wonder about complicity, too.
Yeah.
Azriel's father wasn't a cartoonish villain. He was a devout, loving man, but he allowed it to happen out of fear and faith. The massive crowd in Babylon weren't monsters. They were just scared, anxious people wanting a savior to tell them everything was going to be okay.
That is the perfect provocative question to end on. It's so easy to blame the obvious villains like Remath the priest or Gregory Belkin the cult leader. But what about the cheering crowd? What about the weeping father? Azriel was consumed because a whole society collectively decided his life was worth less than their political and spiritual comfort.
It asks us directly, what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? Who are you willing to turn into a tool or a thing so you can feel safe?
And as long as humanity keeps answering that question with someone else, there will always be more servants of the bones.
That is a haunting thought to leave on. But I think that's where we have to leave it. Azriel is out there, somewhere, carrying his cedar box of bones, trying to do good in a very bad world.
Hopefully he manages to stay awake this time.
Hopefully. That's it for this deep dive into the source material. Thanks for listening.
Keep digging.
We'll see you next time.